Unkillable drag.
Alright, okay, you can put me down now. It's time for another story. Are you into dragons, betrayal, bad faith corporate malarkey?
Maybe? Maybe?
A long time ago, in 1999, Sony Entertainment Online published an MMORPG called Everquest. As one of the older MMOs that helped shape the future of the genre,
never played
it
it.
has many of the features common in
I
today's
wanted
MMOs
to.
like questing, looting, and dungeon raiding. But it also has what is still considered to be one of the most legendary raid bosses of all time. Caraferm was the product of a forbidden love between two dragons of opposite elemental forces, and so was born as the first and only dragon of pure energy. To some, Caraferm was a godly creature that would bring about the new age for dragonkind, and to others he was an abomination. Unfortunately, it wasn't too long before the unfathomable power and taboo nature of his conception overwhelmed Caraferm with a tremendous madness. Dragons cried out for his execution, but the laws forbid dragons to kill dragons under any circumstances. Caraferm violated these laws as well, killing his detractors. Eventually, he was subdued into a great sleep and sealed away in the Sleeper's Tomb. 4 dragons guard the entrance for all eternity. If the 4 were to fall, Caraferm would be free to wreak havoc over the entire world once more.
Damn.
From a technical standpoint, the developers intended for Caraferm to be unkillable, during a time when the most powerful raid bosses had around 2 million health points.
Unkillable?
Caraferm's health points were rumored
That's
to be
just a
somewhere
challenge
within
to
the range of
gamers.
100 million to 400 million. He had multiple abilities that killed even the mightiest of characters in one touch, and was immune to almost every kind of spell and crowd control. Even if one were foolish enough to attempt to awaken Caraferm, they would have to first embark on a quest to find the appropriate keys and kill the 4 dragons guarding his tomb. Each one was a formidable raid boss in their own right, and required guilds with highly organized and leveled players coming together to put all 4 guards down at the same time to begin the summoning.
At the
Once
same
awakened, Caraferm would
time?
set off on a server-wide rampage to destroy everyone and everything.
Wait. At the same time? What is this? The 4 horsemen? That's kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie, that's cool. I wouldn't like it now. I don't think I would like it now. But damn, those were the things that made MMOs and like gaming in general really cool back in the day.
In his path before disappearing forever. This unstoppable rampage was required to progress the story of EverQuest, and players were incentivized to set Caraferm off to attain better loot. However, once the prismatic dragon was gone, there would be no way to farm the items from the 4 dragons that guarded his tomb. As different EverQuest servers awakened Caraferm, the Dragon Guard loot was becoming rarer and even more valuable. Keep in mind that this was during a time when MMOs had adjacent economies based on real-world money. Rallis Zek was one of the last servers remaining with an undisturbed tomb. In normal servers, it was possible for any group of players with strong enough characters to slay the 4 dragon guards and awaken the slumbering giant. But Rallis Zek was a hardcore player versus player server, where players could kill other players to take their loot and reduce their levels. It was difficult to make any form of meaningful endgame progress in older MMOs like EverQuest, so being on a guild's good side was vital. But the 3 strongest guilds of Rallis Zek did not wish to awaken Caraferm, since doing so would make the old Dragon Guard loot impossible to attain. Ascending Dawn, Wooden, and Magus Imperialis Magicus guarded the tomb, and made sure no one could set the end times in motion. Few guilds had the power and information available to open the Sleeper Tomb within Rallis Zek. If one did manage, the members of the offending guild were to be hunted down on sight by the remaining guilds until they left the server. This was enough to keep players at bay, until a monk named Stinkfist defected from Ascending Dawn. The monk joined a guild of outlaws intent on setting the Sleeper's Tomb event in motion in order to make it so no future guilds could acquire the loot ever again. The guild had the power to kill the Dragon Guards, but lacked the information necessary to find the keys. Information that Stinkfist's time in Ascending Dawn would provide. Word traveled a lot slower in those days, and there were always rumors of people wanting to awaken Caraferm. So it took a while for the top guilds to take notice of the defector's plot, and even longer to realize he was being serious. The 3 guilds raced to stop Caraferm's awakening, and while the monk never did manage to open the tomb, he had renewed the server's interest in the Beast of Legend, so they acquiesced to the request. In November 2003, battle plans were drawn up, and the 300 strongest players in Rallis Zek made their way to the tomb. The keys were collected, the Dragon Guards were slain, Caraferm was awakened. The best tank player in all of Rallis Zek stepped forward to draw the beast's attention. The first hit took 95% of his health, and the follow-up attack took the remaining sliver. In 2 hits, the strongest warrior in the server was dead.
God
The next tank
damn.
sprang
On
forward to fulfill
hardcore
the
as
duties
well.
of his fallen comrade, but was snuffed out in a single attack. Carafirm's rampage was building up as he unleashed attacks in an area of effect that wiped out dozens of players at a time. Through sheer discipline, the tank players continued to draw most of the dragon's aggression. One at a time, each tank stepped forth in the chain of command and met the same fate as their senior officer, dying to a single hit from the great prismatic dragon. Once the last tank fell, the rest of the players in the tomb would follow, and the server soon after. The clerics watched in shock as Carafirm made quick work of the strongest tanks of Ralizek, unable to contribute. Since it was impossible to heal the troops dying to one attack, the clerics were left to drag the corpses of their tanks out of harm's reach. Once at a safe distance, the clerics used spells to resurrect
They could
the tanks.
resurrect the
tanks
hardcore
returned to the front of the
players?
battle, where they continued holding Carafirm's attention. Curiously
Whoa.
enough, the dragon's immense power forced the players into a better position than anyone else who had ever attempted to
That's
take on the
cool.
god being. Because the clerics were unable to use their heals, the legendary raid boss never targeted them directly. Out of sight and out of mind, the clerics could continue to resurrect enough tanks to replenish the front lines faster than
Oh
Carafirm
my
could eliminate
god!
them. The most daring of Ralis Zak had found a way to stall out the inevitable. Since melee combat was out of the question, the mages desperately looked for a ranged counteroffensive. Carafirm was virtually immune to all attacks. Only a few spells affected him, causing meager amounts of damage. Pets were summoned and sent in to scratch away at the dragon before being stomped out alongside the tanks. Eventually, the mages settled on the damage shield spell. With this spell, a shield was placed around the pets that inflicted damage back on the attacker. The pets died, but they were resummoned and sent in again with another damage shield. For 15 minutes, the tanks held the line. The clerics resurrected the tanks, and the mages sent in their kamikaze pets. Carafirm's health bar dropped ever so slightly from 100% to 99%. The immortal dragon was made to bleed. The other servers tuned into the chat rooms to discuss what was happening. A presumed suicide run had turned into a battle of attrition. All eyes were on Ralis Zak, and with renewed inspiration, the raiders continued to throw themselves at Carafirm until another sliver of health disappeared from his health bar, and another, and another. The improvised plan was working. An hour passed, then another, and another. Tick by tick, the declining health bar kept the 300 motivated. By the 4th hour, the tanks had lost tremendous amounts of experience from their accumulating deaths. They were considerably weaker than when the raid had been initiated, but they stayed their course. These players were no strangers to high-stress situations.
That is so amazing.
They were the best Ralis Zak had to offer, but this raid was unlike any other raid, designed to be impossible. Yet somehow the unkillable god dragon was undoubtedly dying. The light at the end of the tunnel was growing ever brighter, until suddenly it vanished. It took a second to realize the 300 players were attacking nothing. With a quarter of his health remaining, Carafirm had been despawned by the administrator of the server.
What?
The players were outraged. They demanded to know why they'd been robbed of their eventual victory. The administrator could only give one detail. He was told to pull the plug by Sony Entertainment themselves.
What?
Soon after, official notice was given. Sony Entertainment accused the players of cheating, and then rescinded their accusation. Sony Entertainment then said Carafirm had been bugged during the encounter. Allegedly, the dragon was focused on a random, non-playable character in the tomb. The players felt Sony was floundering for a reason. If the dragon's focus was elsewhere, then the players would not have died in the thousands. They suspected Sony didn't want their pet dragon to be put down. After all, Carafirm was intended to be unkillable. He was meant to destroy the world and continue the story of Everquest. There was no fallback plan because he was not meant to die in the tomb at the hands of overzealous players making a tank-resurrecting conga line and bombarding the realm's most powerful villain with their bodies. The publishers had taken their ball and ran home with it. Sony gave in to the outcries. The server was rolled back, and the 300 made preparations to finish what they had started. The tanks ran in with renewed gusto. The clerics resurrected them as they had before, and the mages sent in their pets with damage shields. 3 hours later, the strongest players of Ralis Zak had done what no other server had done before. The immortal dragon of Everquest was dead. Sony congratulated the players and gave them enough experience points to make up for the levels they lost while fighting Carafirm. It's the least they could do since the most legendary raid boss in all of MMORPG history didn't drop any loot.
Oof. The fact that first of all they got the kill, that is more than any loot you could possibly want in such a game or scenario. Like, these stories of old times and of old MMOs and things like that. That's like what made gaming so awesome for me. Like, honestly. Like, I remember opening the gates of Ankiraj. I remember going into Naxxramas. I remember killing the Four Horsemen. I remember all those super hard fights and all the coordination and all the hours that we would spend just to like progress and advance in things. And that was always so epic and so awesome. Nowadays, games are more like people are not as happy playing stuff with others, and 40-man raids especially. Like, that was a 300-man raid. But 40 man's already problematic, even 25 to a lot of people. Oh. But with so much, like with the internet giving you so much information at hand, and people just wanting it at like being spoon fed all the information by someone and just watch a video instead of trying things out themselves. I feel like such stories don't really exist anymore. Now you even have PTR for raids and everything like that. Not like people get press release content a year in advance, months in advance, weeks in advance, just to see the entire game. There's no more equal footing start or stuff like that. So yeah, like you have people that read guides and people that don't want to read guides, and you have like a very split scenario. That's a really cool story though. Thank you for recommending it and for linking it in the React to channel. I enjoyed it a lot. And I hope YouTube does as well. Thank you for watching, YouTube. And see you next time. If you want to recommend stuff, join the Discord.